New World just came out with what really is their first cinematic in game after the latest Tempest Heart expedition. For those who don't know, the new one came out with the Heart of Madness update and is the conclusion to the Isabella storyline. So, following the main story quest up until now that we've been given. If you don't know too much about the main story quest, I do have a video that breaks down the main story quest in 5 minutes and gives you kind of the story so far. So, be sure to check that out if you're more interested. I'm not going to go too much into detail, but basically, the way this expedition ends is you finally fight your way to the Tempest Heart, which is Isabella's lair. And there you go through a series of challenges and face off and see memories of Isabella and begin to understand her better. And that eventually leads you to fight her and defeat her, and finally ending the reign of Isabella. So, with that being said, there was a cinematic at the end that I wanted to break down. So first things first, I'm going to play the cinematic. Special thanks to Flatfoot666 for uploading this on YouTube, as it was an easy way to be able to kind of show you guys this. So we're going to watch the cinematic, and afterwards I'm going to do a breakdown of what I think of it, what things are hinting at, and kind of allude to what I think is the next chapter in the New World story. So first things first, let's check out the cinematic.
And so it came to pass. The heart of the Tempest, Captain Isabella herself, defeated. Abandoned by the power for which she traded everything. The Soul Wardens were victorious, pulling Eternum and the world back from the precipice of doom. But at what cost? So many of their numbers corrupted or lost. Their fragile alliance crumbling as the factions fight for dominance. And what of the allies they believe they've gained in the angry Earth? It would be clear soon enough that the vengeful hand of nature would grasp far more than equilibrium. And the void exposed when the surge in corruption abates would become a threat of itself. As the soulless remnants of this conflict rise from the battlefield to find purpose and power in a source as yet unrealized. Yes, the hapless inhabitants of Eternum will soon learn that this chapter may have come to a close, but the real horrors have just begun.
All right, so before we get too hard into this, I want to do a brief kind of overview of some things we should know going into this about Isabella and the corruption and how it works. So first things first, it is while she is the Tempest and believed leader of the corrupted, there is the idea that she not really is, but actually the heretic is. Now the heretic is an interesting figure. We're actually gonna hop over here to this. So you say they call me the heretic, but I'm not of a singular nature. There have been countless heretics before me, and there will be countless more after me. Nedenyek seeks its next worthy vessel, one of shattered heart and broken dreams. He is nearby, I can smell it. So what does this exactly mean? What do we know about the heretic? So the heretic is this kind of strange, almost like devil-like figure that's presented in the lore. It is believed by Russo, Father Russo. He's the elderly man that you see in the intro cinematic that gives Thorpe the box. It is believed by him that Isabella was speaking to some deity on the ship headed to the New World. So we don't know too much about what it is, but it's seemingly like a dark entity maybe behind the corruption, maybe the actual leader of the corruption, or maybe just created the corruption but is not actually involved too heavily in it, or maybe it's just a guide trying to find a true leader of the corruption with the Tempest. We're not too sure exactly what it is, but as we know here, there have been countless of heretics. We have met one in the expedition, but this is important thing to know. With the future of the story, the corruption will still be around because, while Isabella has been defeated and maybe the power of the corruption will be kind of pulled back for a while, it's certainly not really gone yet. The second thing to note with Isabella is it's a lot about restoring her family name. That's kind of why she takes this. It's very in the similar sense of like Eve biting the apple for knowledge, right? Offering of the apple. She kind of goes to because she's wanting to like rebuild her family. Now this isn't like for sure. Obviously, De Leon is not the actual last name as far as I could find of Isabella the First, but there are a lot of similarities in terms of kind of being the one. She's one who was one of the leaders of Spain who kind of led and began the overseas empire in the New World. So maybe this is her inspiration character. Maybe it's supposed to be her, or just kind of a similarity. But as far as I know, she's not an actual historical character that I could find for sure. So I wanted to present that information as we kind of go into this and kind of talk about the things that we see. So starting at the beginning.
It came to pass, the heart of the Tempest, Captain Isabella herself, defeated, abandoned by the power for which she traded everything.
So this is an interesting part where it says she was abandoned by the power for which she traded everything, which leads to believe what I was talking about before with the heretic, that there is someone kind of behind the scenes who is pulling all the strings, and whether this is a literal, like they took away the power from Isabel, like they failed them, or maybe it's just supposed to be kind of a metaphorical way of kind of just talking about how she just failed the corruption and how it just kind of left her because she died type thing. It's kind of up in the air, but I think it's interesting that they chose those words specifically.
The Soul Wardens were victorious, pulling Eternum and the world back from the precipice of doom.
And of course, we know this from the main story quest. Our character, with the help of Jonas, was one that kind of reestablished the Soul Wardens, these ancient warriors against the corruption. So obviously, this is a victory for them. We kind of know this from the main story.
But at what cost? So many of their numbers corrupted or lost.
And again, this kind of leads back to, while Isabella may be like the leader of the corruption, she's not the source of the infestation or deity of the corruption, because they still exist without her, and have found other leaders beyond her, like the Empress or Thorpe. While maybe to lesser extents, both of them, it doesn't necessarily mean that she is like the source of the corruption, kind of like as it alludes to here.
Their fragile alliance crumbling as the factions fight for dominance.
This isn't a major thing, but this is kind of just their way of explaining the war system and the PvP endgame and why you're continuing to fight for this. This is one of the things that I think people are confused about. They paid attention to the story. It's like, why are all these factions fighting each other with the corruption? I definitely think they meant the idea of these like territorial wars, while still being prominent like beforehand, being more evident now that the corruption is gone, that they can focus on each other and no longer the corruption. So now that this has officially happened in the story, it makes a lot more sense why there's like these PvP territorial wars happening in an in-game mechanic point of view.
And what of the allies they believe they've gained in the angry earth? It would be clear soon enough that the vengeful hand of nature would grasp far more than equilibrium.
So this is interesting for those who don't remember. So in the main story, we make an alliance with the Angry Earth in Eden Grove to blight the Motherwell as a way to kind of fight the corruption and force them back. What this does, because what we found out is that the Motherwell is the source, as far as we understand it, is the source of the storm that circles around Aeternum, that keeps people trapped here. Like you can read in lore pages, there have been many times people try to voyage off the island and escape, and they crash in the waves and crash in the storm around the island. You can see in like the intro cinematics, this giant wall of storm. So we made this alliance that ended that, but now it is alluding that the Angry Earth may become a more prominent threat. Maybe they're going to try and take back the island now that they're no longer focused on corruption. There's definitely a theme of like, okay, the big bag is gone. Now everyone's going to focus on each other again. And also, as far as I know, this is a new character. I was trying to look around, unless it's some of the characters that we met in Eden Grove that just have been a different appearance now that I just don't recognize from this art. As far as I can tell, this is a new character, and will probably be kind of the quote-unquote kind of like maybe like the leader of the Angry Earth, or like the emissary between the Angry Earth and humans, because obviously while she seems to have leaves and foliage as hair and like these kind of like green, like almost like not like tendrils, but like roots kind of growing on her face. Obviously, she has a stronger connection, but we don't know the full extent of what that is yet.
And the void exposed when the surge in corruption abates would become a threat of itself. As the soulless remnants of this conflict rise from the battlefield to find purpose and power in a source as yet unrealized. Yes.
Okay, we're gonna pause there real fast because I think this is probably the most interesting part of the trailer. So throughout the game, we fight the Lost, and there's two options here. So we're gonna start with the Lost, as this idea that like these are the individuals that over the years have died and lost their soul and did not return from death like people are supposed to when they turn, but instead came back as like hollowed versions of themselves. And it's one of those things that in the game it's very purposely kind of in the background, just like as a force of nature. Like this is just a matter of fact, but now this is kind of alluding to maybe that's not the way it's supposed to be, and maybe there's a reason behind, which there should be behind the immortality on the island, and that there is actually some other force or purpose behind the fact that people come back as lost. Whether that's some type of leader situation like the corrupted that's just been more in the background, or if it's just kind of a natural way or a curse on the island. But I think it's interesting that we see Thorpe here returning as what is supposedly a lost. The other option, and these may not be mutually exclusive, is we have been told that there's going to be a bit more focus on the ancients after the corrupted arc that we just finished. And so maybe there is a connection. We know that the ancients have some connection to the lost. So maybe this is one of those things where this is how they go into the ancients with the lost, and this is kind of a combined story with that, and not like the lost on its own, but the lost combined with the ancients. This latter one I think more realistic, just based on the fact that they're like, yeah, we're gonna go into ancients after corrupted, and so maybe we'll be exploring more of that story, which is also a strong possibility with the fact that we know the next expedition, Barnacles and something I can't remember off the top of my head. We have seen the art for that character, like supposed like big bad that will fight in that is like this lost pirate. I'm not sure if he has a connection to the Siren Queen or not. We don't really know anything about him as far as I know, but maybe that is kind of be the guise in which we go into the ancients, is we fight a almost leader of the lost beyond the Siren Queen, who maybe is more knowledgeable, because we do know the Siren Queen kind of gained her powers and created her lost and like all that because of this instrument, like this weapon that they found in an ancient temple. So maybe this is kind of the bridge they do as we go into the Barnacles expedition and fight the lost, and we learn more about the ancients through them and how the ancients were maybe creating lost for some reason. But either way, it's definitely kind of teasing into the next story, which I think will be like super exciting. I love the corruption and all that, but I'm also really excited to have a different type of kind of like villain that we're really facing off against.
The hapless inhabitants of Eternum will soon learn that this chapter may have come to a close, but the real horrors have just begun.
All right, and then we're gonna bump back here real fast, see if I can. All right, so the final thing that we see, and then I'm not sure if this is supposed to be Father Russo or another character or whatnot, but we can see some type of mutilation pop up on this character's face. It could just be a play on with the whole horror thing, but it's an interesting break. It's very not like crustacean, but you kind of understand that look that's coming, kind of almost like insect-like, or maybe it's supposed to be like ocean, like kind of not like a crab, but maybe like a pincer kind of look to it. Which at first would make me believe, okay, maybe he's a drowned, like he's a member of like the Lost and everything. But interesting enough, he has like the red eyes. So I'm not sure if this is supposed to be a tease of like a combination of the Lost and Corrupted, or if there's a tie together that maybe this character knows about. I'm assuming this character is probably a heretic. If not, I'm not really quite sure what to make of him. He may just be a non-important character that they're just using as a narrator. But I do think it's kind of an interesting art choice that they kind of do here that I really just don't know too much about. But I think it's really kind of fascinating. But either way, what we could tell from this is there's definitely teases with this whole section about Lost and ancients, and kind of how the ancients were able to make Lost and what exactly that is, and how immortality works on Eternum will be explained in the next chapter through here. And that we also kind of have confirmation that while the Soul Wardens have won the war against the Corrupted, it's definitely, or more so, they have won the battle, but they have not won the war yet. But either way, I think this is super awesome. I really, really, really hope they continue to do more of these cinematics. I think it's been something that people have been asking for forever. I would not be upset by any means if they go through and add 10 cinematics to the main story quest of 1 through 60 and allow players to actually understand what's happening, and at very least go and like watch those back and kind of get a better story. Because quite frankly, and this is not to be a self brag, but my 5 minute no main story quest explanation videos probably a bit more informational than trying to figure out in game, because you had to really do some research on that. But either way, hope you guys enjoyed this breakdown. Hope you guys are excited as I am. I think the latest update has been amazing for New World, and I really truly believe that there should be a resurgence with this player base if they continue to put out the quality content that they have been over the last few months. But either way, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time. Peace out.